Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam Rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum. We're here today with a very special guest, but he couldn't make it, so instead we've got Jamshid. Assalamu alaikum, Jamshid. How are you doing?
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Proper joker, man.
MashaAllah, very good friend of mine. We
Alhamdulillah.
get along very well, MashaAllah. We have a lot
Alhamdulillah.
of mutual interests.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so,
Which
how are you
is,
doing?
alhamdulillah, all good, man. All good.
So,
Just getting back into the
just-
internet.
yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
Um, the young smirks, I wanted it to be always be in person, in
yeah.
actually interviewing people in person. And I held it off for a few months, and we never know when this lockdown is gonna end. So I thought I might as well start the live streaming. And I know you've been trying to get me into doing live streaming for a while on
Mm-hmm.
different platforms like Twitch and Discord and stuff. Um, so anyway, I thought I might as well make use of the YouTube channels that I have. We have, I have a fair bit of following, so I might as well use it. So just to introduce Jamshed, Jamshed is somebody who's been very active in the UK Dawah scene for many years. Um, you might not actually see him as much online as much as you should, but he is well known amongst the Duat and the people involved in Dawah in the UK.
For good reasons, I hope.
Yeah, mostly. Alhamdulillah. So tell us a bit about yourself.
Tell me a bit about myself. Just a bit. Okay. Like you said, basically, I've been involved in Dawah for 2 decades now, like 20
What?
years
What?
plus, like literally like 20
Subhanallah,
years plus now. I'm old, like see the whiteness here, man. This is I mean, you got your fair share as well.
Yeah, it's coming slowly.
This is the sign of the age. I don't know, although
Yeah,
on the camera it looks like the whiteness is being replaced by black now. So it's like maybe my youth is coming back.
maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
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 I just want to say the first time I met you,
I remember the first time I met you.
where was it?
It was it? Did I actually meet you there? No, the first time I met you, I think I actually met you in person in Manchester, because there was the thing
It was
that happened
house.
there was the thing that happened in London, and I can't remember if you were actually. No, you weren't actually there. I remember who. Either I met you there. No, I think I met Mansour there. Imran. Imran ibn Mansour there. I think that was it actually. So that wasn't the first time I met you. I think the first time I met you actually was in Manchester. Was it that time with the swing?
Yes. When you came to my house,
Okay, yeah,
I
yeah. Okay,
remember
that was the
saying,
first time we actually met. Okay, so I think that was the first time I heard of you then in London.
okay.
That that
All
story.
right,
You
yeah.
remember that story?
Subhanallah, yeah.
You forgot that
This is
story, huh?
about the Jesus in the Injil book.
That's the one, man. That's the
And you
one.
were you were hounding me down, wanting to know the details.
That's because it was hyped up so much, man. Oh, this is going to be the next best thing. This is just going to destroy everything. Blah blah blah. We're going to
And by the
release it
way,
on. Yeah.
it is gonna be it's
It's
gonna
good.
be
Like, come on. We've been waiting years and years and years for it.
no,
Alhamdulillah.
I mean the
No, it
basic
was.
Dawah book, yeah, but
It
it
was.
kind of evolved, the
I know.
research evolved, and
I know, I know, but there was this whole thing about the whole secrecy behind it, I just couldn't fathom. It just didn't gel with me.
yeah.
This whole
So
phenomena of okay,
explain to the audience what
okay,
happened.
all
How
right, okay. Let's explain. Right. So as a background for me, I'm kind of like I like to be very very pragmatic. Right. I'm not an indirect person. I just go straight. So for me, when something is being marketed as the next big thing in the Dawah or whatever have you, from my perspective, it's like, well, why wouldn't you share that with everybody, right? Um, Spend 0 seconds. Okay. Why wouldn't you share that with? Sorry, I just got someone messing around with the Twitch commands on my Twitch. Why wouldn't you share that with everybody? Right? Like this is the next big thing. But it was kind of hidden around. Oh, this book, Jesus and the Injil, it completely flips our understanding right the way around. It's the biggest thing. Blah 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 blah. It's going to be released on X day. This and the, I'm just thinking, and there was a lot of hype around it, and I'm just thinking, okay, but rather than just hyping it up, why don't you just tell us so at least we can start putting it into practice? Because my understanding was like, listen, at the end of the day, if you Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, if you wanted it for the khair of the ummah, for the dawah and things like that, tell the people. But it was kind of like, no, 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 we're not going to tell you. We're going to hype it up. We're going to do the marketing. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Oh, okay,
So
fine. And this was around December time. Wait. So this is around December time. Wait. I got to tell the story now. Okay, go on.
no, I was just going to say the reason I was hyping it up
No,
is to get that interest in it.
yeah, but okay, fine. There's a counter explanation. There's a reason. Okay, yeah, it worked, but from my perspective, I'm like, we're at the beginning of December. Oh no, we're just going to release it just in time for Christmas or whatever. And I'm thinking, well, hold on a second. Fine, if you're targeting this is like something specifically, that the Muslims need to explain to Christian audiences or whatever have you, like that's a little bit late, isn't it? But then, okay, fine, whatever, and that was it. So it was at this event that was happening in London that I met Imran there, because I think, so you two had crossed paths, and he had actually seen it or understood it or whatever have you. I think he was part of the hype train actually. Yeah. So, and I asked.
I went to visit him in his house.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we'd already done the video. He didn't actually release the video in the end, but I think it was before, I think it was after the video.
Okay.
I think he met you.
Yeah. So this is where, obviously not for the first time. So I'd known Imran because Imran had traveled with us to Norway. So this was before he got popular. So Imran had come to Norway, where I was doing a lot of dawah training and things like that with Yusuf Chambers. And then he started to become a lot more active on social media after that. So I already knew Imran quite well, having spent, I think it was a 2-week trip or something like that with him already. So I met him at this event in London, and I was like asking him, I was like, okay, what is this thing? Like he wouldn't say it's like, oh no, it's not a secret. You have to wait. I was like, but is it a game changer? Oh yeah, it's a game changer. Completely flips everything. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. A big secret. Okay, fine. We'll wait a couple of weeks. Christmas comes along, and did anything happen? Absolutely not. Like, John, where the hell is this booklet, man? You promised. Where is John? Oh, he's not even in the country anymore. Where's he gone? He's gone to America to go talk to Eddie about it. It's like, what the hell? He's on the Dean show now. It's like talking about this booklet that nobody's ever seen, and then what was it? Then you came back, and then something else happened. I think it took like a couple of months for it to come up. And okay, fine. The point itself was good, and it hadn't been raised before, or at least not to my knowledge. And it was a very, very good and interesting point, and it's a point that I use regularly. But for me, I just found the whole process really, really frustrating. I was like, yeah, you could have just told us this like 2 months ago, and
Yeah.
rather than.
But you have to understand, Jamshed, that there's, when it comes to marketing.
And I don't do marketing. I'm really bad at marketing. That's why, like John said, you don't see me anywhere. I just prefer to just get on with the thing, man. Forget the marketing. Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah. So when it comes to promotion and marketing, you've got to kind of hype it up a bit. But I think the point was a good point, and it has developed. It's developed since.
Yeah.
More on the side of the conversation and discussion around what the Jews and Christians had in Medina at that particular time. But that's for another podcast, inshallah.
Yeah.
Maybe we can speak about that another time. But that's our first kind of meeting. I remember you on the phone, just tell me. And I think, didn't you ask Ghulam as well?
Yeah, because you were Manchester based, and Ghulam was obviously Manchester. Yeah, so Ghulam. So literally, like, obviously, I had contact with all these dua. Everybody knew about it. It was like this big secret that I was just on the outside of. I was like nobody is just saying no. You just have to wait for the booklet. You have to wait for the booklet. I was like, oh, okay, and then mushkila and getting the booklet out. And I think our actual meeting actually happened then when I came to Manchester, and I was helping out Hamza doing one of his courses there. And I think you turned up there, and that's where that was in Manchester. Yes. Wait, hang on. I remember I was with Hamza in his hotel at the time. I must have come multiple times. Do you know what? I was a single guy back then. I was traveling all over the place, so I actually can't remember what I was doing in Manchester.
Yeah, I remember you came to my house, and we had the big whiteboard and
Yeah, yeah.
everyone refused
And
until
I
they were
was saying,
all
mashallah, you had like a plan, you had all of this research going on, you had all the books. I can say, well, okay, mashallah, this guy is proper serious and active in everything he's doing. It.
I
Yeah,
miss my office in Manchester. It's a nice
it's
little
like a proper
place. Everyone,
library. It was like a proper
yeah,
library with
everyone
proper
coming and
research and
speaking
everything.
there. Yeah, and we had the swing, the initiation swing.
Yes,
Remember that?
yes. How can I forget that swing, man? That swing gave me. I've still got that headache to today. I don't know if people
Yeah.
have seen that video. That
Mm.
that yeah. So there's a video floating around somewhere of you spinning me around on this crazy. So so just for the people know, it's like a big open circular net kind of swing that spins around and it swings around as well. So you had it spinning around and had me swinging around on it that I couldn't even get off, and you just basically kept
Yeah.
on making it go faster and faster and faster. I think I was almost sick then as well by the time I escaped.
Yeah.
Not
No,
trusting
it's
you
good
again with that.
initiation. But I think that was the first time I met you, and I think you came with Sabor Ahmed. I think Abu Jabril was there,
Yeah,
and my friend Salim,
yeah.
and
There was yeah,
I think maybe Sabor and maybe Imran, maybe Salahuddin. I can't remember. There's a few of the Ayera brothers there.
yeah. So what were we
Lukman,
doing?
he was there. I'm not sure, but
There was. I
yeah,
remember. Yeah, I remember Abu Jibril.
yeah,
There was definitely a few others, but I can't remember exactly now.
yeah.
Because I'm trying to
And
think what
then
was the event going on.
yeah. But since then, we became friends and we stayed in touch. And one thing I like, what I connected with you on is you have your Dawah course,
Yeah.
which I have graciously
Yeah. The
bought.
orange car. The orange.
Plagiarized.
I forgot about the orange car. Yeah.
Remember that?
I remember the orange car now. Okay, so for anyone who's interested, I will be covering the original red car on Saturday. Saturday coming up in a week's time. But yeah, the orange car.
So,
So yeah.
so tell us about Dawah Power, because this is kind of your Dawah uh, course which you've been developing for many years, you adding to, etc.
Well, I tell you what. Shall we go? So Dawah Power itself started about 10 years ago, but shall we go say 10 years before that? Right, because I think really to understand where Dawah Power itself came from, is probably an idea to discuss how I came to engage in Dawah in the first place.
Yeah,
Because that my whole philosophy and my mindset at the time was kind of a driving factor for the method in which I like to give and propagate Dawah. So obviously, I say obviously, it's not that obvious actually, but you might be able to guess from ethnicity. So I was born and raised in a Pakistani family. So I was Muslim by culture, but never really taught that much about Islam actually. Although there was something, I did believe that, okay, Islam is the truth and whatever have you, but I never had the ability or the tools to prove it and justify it. And of course, anytime I would have a discussion with any, because obviously it's a personal, it's a life defining topic, but when you engage with wider society that have counter principles and perspectives, and especially when you have no knowledge. So I had no knowledge of the seal. I had no knowledge of my deen at all. Ooh, what happened to the picture there? Oh, I'm back again. There we go. I would get beat on and whatever have you in the forums and things like that. There was very, I couldn't actually justify my views. Um, and that really irritated me for two reasons. Because it meant that, from an epistemic perspective, from a knowledge perspective, it meant that my belief in my own theology, or in the religion of Islam, which I just happened to have been born and raised in, was actually no better than the belief of anyone else in any other ideology that they were born and raised in, right? So, what made the difference between another person in any other ideology and myself? How could I, on what basis am I saying that my path is the truth, and theirs isn't? I mean, I had other little background bits of knowledge and things like that that kind of supported the fact or the notion that Islam was the truth, but I had no way to prove it. It was, I suppose, if you want to call it for a sake, stories, indoctrination, whatever have you. And the other, so that was one issue that, what makes me different to anybody else? The other issue was that I couldn't reconcile this idea that at the end of the day, if there is a God, if there is a creator, and that creator has a plan, a methodology, an outlook, a religion, a way of life for people, or something like that, that should be easy and obvious for people to find, such that you don't need to look hard for it. And when you see it, it should be readily apparent, right?
Mm.
Because the idea of God making religion, making your salvation such that it's next to impossible for you to find, or ridiculously difficult for you to ascertain the truth of it from falsehood, that just didn't gel with me. That just didn't seem like a godly quality. That it seemed more of a godly quality, that the truth must be crystal clear and able to be separated from the falsehood. And taking that as an axiom, as an innate belief, meant that if Islam is the truth, there must be some methodology, something about it that must be so crystal clear to someone with a clear, rational thinking mind that you couldn't deny it from being the truth. Does that make sense? That there must be some way to prove it. And I really wanted to find out, well, what is it? What could this be? And for a while, for a few years, because I couldn't find it, it wasn't that I didn't believe that it didn't exist. So again, this is also a logical fallacy that some people fall into. Just because they don't know about something, they assume it didn't exist. So I always had faith that it existed, just that I couldn't find it. And that in and of itself was a little bit worrying. And then, alhamdulillah, I happened to come across an individual who'll remain nameless. He's a close personal friend of mine. He's not someone who's known, who was doing private halakat in his house, that basically he belonged to a group, which I won't name because of various connections associated to that group, but he belonged to a group of Muslims that are preparing for the return of the Caliph. And they had some objectives, and one of the objectives was to preserve the identity of the Muslims. And by doing that, what they did was to set out how to prove Islam to be true, and yada, yada, yada. And basically, so I started to attend that. And over the course of several weeks, he led me through a proof for creator, in a very step-by-step manner. Now, I play devil's advocate, and I can play devil's advocate hard. Now, bear in mind, I had, I'm coming from a background at this point of, a lot of people beating me down on my theistic position. So I had a lot of contentions that I could throw at anyone, and he showed me how to answer every single one in a manner that was rationally and intellectually pleasing to me, that it made sense, that I didn't have to jump through intellectual hoops, to reconcile everything. The whole thing just made sense. So once I'd got that down, once I understood that at that point, the only way I can describe it, once you reach and have that epiphany, the only way I can describe the feeling or what happens to a person at that point is kind of like in the film The Matrix, which is, so for anyone who hasn't seen the film, and unfortunately this is a new phenomenon now, right? Because, The Matrix was part of my upbringing, it was part of my growing up, it's pop culture for me. But you say that to people now, it's like, The Matrix? That's like 25 years old, I haven't seen, that's like an old vintage film. It's like, no, man. Okay, the Matrix basically about a character who finds himself that he's actually what he perceived to be reality is actual virtual reality, and then he wakes up in the real world and finds that what he's been living is actually an artificial existence, and the real world is something completely different. The point there being that once he's woken up and he's come into the real world and he realizes that his prior existence, or what he thought this existence, is actually completely artificial, when he goes back into that machine-generated world, he realizes and he can see the artificial nature of it. He understands what's going on behind the scenes because he understands how the world is being put together. And it's kind of like that. It's like once you've seen the shroud of reality drop, like things become so much clearer to you. Like you just develop a different perspective and you can't go backwards. So once I'd hit that point and this made sense to me, Then I thought, well, okay, um, this knowledge should be available to everybody. Like everybody should have this. Like this should be basic knowledge. Like how do you know that your religion is true? It should be basic knowledge. So
Yeah,
that's where I felt it important that anyone who I came across really needed to know, because I actually found it a crime that there was this knowledge out there, but it just was hidden. Like I had to spend years actively searching for it. And again, bear in mind, this is like 20 odd years. This is like in the late 90s,
this
very
is
early to
before all the popular
this is before. This is like
Dawah
before. This is
organizations like
like at
Nigeria
yeah.
stuff like that.
This is at this time. The internet is growing. The big dot-com boom is just happening. Websites were very basic. The internet was a complex and scary place. It was, you're still on dial-up modems and things like that at the time. Actually, no, were we, or was I on cable? But we're talking about really in the very early days. Actually, no, we were
Yeah.
on dial-up modems, because I remember being on a dial-up modem when 9/11 happened. So just about transitioning to cable, I think, or ADSL at the time. Anyway, so from that point on, I felt that, in having this epiphany, I wanted to share this epiphany with a lot of other people, because I felt that a lot of people were just having this basic existence where they just believed things because they were indoctrinated into it, because that's just what they were told, because they didn't have any alternative, but they didn't have any real solid structure or grounding. So I basically became active in giving dawah from that regard. Now, the only problem with this proof or methodology that we had was that it was very long-winded. Like, to explain the concept, just to prove God to someone, like it would take like 2 or 3 hours, and it was quite in depth, but it was
Yeah.
ridiculously complicated. I actually remember one time I was actually explaining it to my uncle. We'd gone out to a restaurant, and I actually remember I went through the whole thing with him, and after the meal, a chap had come up to us, and he actually said that he was overhearing our conversation. He was one of the professors of philosophy. I think, I'm pretty sure it was philosophy, some kind of a thought-related topic. And he said that the description that I'd given was the best he had ever heard of. I was like, okay, fine, please with me. I didn't do much more with it, but anyway. Now at this point, my iman is starting to increase, and I'm becoming a lot more active. And when I say active, I mean attendant towards my Islamic practice. So at this point in time, bear in mind, in my late teens, early 20s, I wasn't really practicing. I was praying occasionally, this, that, and the other. But now, as I say, when you have that shroud dropped, when you see the reality, you become a lot more aware of what your obligations are. So I was starting to pray a lot more. I was starting to learn a lot more. I was starting to, listen to a lot of lectures and whatever have you. We had this one individual around about the same period of time. Oh, this was another big change as well. Here's another thing. So at this point, I'd also gotten married and moved out of my parents' house. We had our own flat. And by happenstance, our flat happened to be near a masjid where the predominant language, even though it was an Arab mosque, they made the active effort to do everything in English, as opposed to the mosque that I would traditionally go to, which would be a Pakistani mosque where everything would be in hardcore Urdu, and I wouldn't have a clue what was being spoken at. So for me, going to the mosque was such a drag, because it's just a place where gobbledygook is being spoken. I have no idea what's going on, and I enter and I leave just thinking that I've just wasted part of my life. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. So I've just wasted part of my life there. Whereas when I started going to this mosque that was speaking, that did most things in English, or almost everything in English, then I was actually beginning to learn. I was learning from the khutbahs and things like that. And it just so happened around about this period of time, there was an individual that came to this mosque to deliver a khutbah. And I remember this very clearly. The khutbah was on the subject of salah. And the one line from that khutbah that stood out to me was when the speaker was explaining that of all of the commandments, all of the edicts, all of the lessons, all of the messages that was sent, all of the revelation, all of the wahi that Rasulullah received, that makes up the whole corpus of Islam, there was only one issue that was so sacred that it couldn't be sent by an intermediary. And of course, the intermediary is Jibreel alayhi salam. You know, what kind of a better intermediary could you have? But still, there was one topic that was so heavy, so serious, that it had to be given directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had to be called up to receive it. And that was the topic, the subject of Salah. This is the magnificence and the importance of Salah. And I was like, wow, okay, you know, that really struck me. That was like, wow, that just, you know, separates Salah from everything else. And, you know, I made a conscious effort from that point on, was that, okay,
Yeah.
you know, not to be lax in my Salah. So again, this is me, like, you know, growing into my Islam at this point. By the way, do you want to hazard a guess as to who that speaker was? It's a pretty well-known, very famous speaker.
Ali Hamuda.
No, no, no. Ali was a very young boy, very young man at this time. How old is? Yeah, no, it wouldn't have been. This is like what, 15 plus years ago.
Okay, I was only guessing Ali because
No,
he's
no, no.
local.
Ali's local. Ali's local. Ali came on the scene, I think, about 10 years or so ago. So
Yeah.
this is a few years before Ali's time.
Was it Abdurrahim Green?
No, sheikh, an actual sheikh, like an Islamic scholar.
Go on, tell me.
Oh, close. No, green. Everyone, okay, aggressive green. That was Sheikh Yasser Qadi.
Oh, okay.
I had no idea who he was. Right? But this is Sheikh Yasser Qadi, who had come to my little masjid in my little part of the world to deliver this khutbah, and he delivered.
Why? This was at the khutbah.
What's that?
Oh, I was thinking he was watching you. You know, everything's on YouTube these
No,
days.
no,
so
no, no. This is live. There's no YouTube. There's no YouTube at
Okay.
this time. YouTube.
Right.
Okay, don't feel bad at me because I happen to know this, right? I work on the internet, so I know a lot of internet stuff. I think YouTube came around about that time because YouTube came after this whole Super Bowl incident because the creators of YouTube couldn't find a video of that anywhere. But there was no YouTube at the time. Okay, there was no online lectures and things like that, which obviously made, you know, finding or good Islamic material very, very difficult because you only had the old what was it, IDCI materials, IPCI, you know, and that material is like from the 70s, very old school written. It's not time appropriate, I don't think. So yeah, this was Sheikh Yasser Qadi, who, you know, eventually I found, and I downloaded a number of his lectures and things like that and started to listen to them. So I worked as a software developer, obviously, as you know, we can have our headphones on while we work. So I was listening to a lot of his lectures then, basically, as I worked over the course of many, many years, alhamdulillah. So I think, okay, I don't know what that means. Unless that's directed towards you.
No.
No? Okay, Allahu Alam.
So it's interesting.
Right.
So just to back up a bit, just
Yeah.
because we're getting more people joining now.
Yeah.
So you were, subhanAllah, you're born into a Pakistani family, you know, who are culturally Muslim and they're Muslim, but you kind of, you know, you're being challenged, you know, about your particular faith, and then you realize that, you know, I do believe this, but in fact, my belief is basically blind following.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so you want to have reasons. You met, you know, people who gave you reasons to believe, and this, you know, developed you as a person. You know, and you started to get closer to Allah, started to attend the masjid more, started to pray your salah. So
Yeah.
that's where we are right now.
Yeah, that's where we got. So part of this journey was that unfortunately we kind of had a little bit of a crisscross here in my first marriage, in that my wife at this time, she was from Pakistan. She had come over here, and she was kind of basically being drawn towards the Western lifestyle, which I had. And again, I'm not promoting or celebrating this. This is a reality. It's sure, you know, just what happened. That I'd already indulged in that in my late teens. As soon as I had opportunity for freedom, I was out there. So I'd already indulged in that in my late teens, and I'd already reached the conclusion in my early 20s that, you know, this is not sustainable. This is not the life that I want to be. One of the I can't remember where I got this notion from, but there was a very strong notion in my head, was that those are the formative years to turn into the person that I want to be for the rest of my life. that whatever I'm going to be doing, in my late teens or my early 20s, that's the type of person that I'm going to be thereafter. It's going to be very difficult to change out of that mold, and that was a heavy thought in my head. So I started coming, towards Islam that from that sense. I remember we had around about this time, Peace TV had become available on Sky TV. So I
Yeah.
started to watch a lot of Dr. Zakir Naik as well. That was a great source of material, Ahmed Deedat and Dr. Zakir Naik and things like that, which I found fascinating, his debates and some of the lectures and
You,
things like
you
that. So,
know,
yeah,
can I just say something about
yeah,
that?
yeah, I know you. Yeah,
I think this generation, I'm talking about the generation that were raised where social media was already in existence
yeah,
when they were, or at least when they were teenagers. They don't really appreciate like what the Duats did, the early Duats,
yeah,
like
yeah.
Zakir Naik, Abdurrahim Green, Peace TV. Of course, now, you can look at Peace TV and it might look
It's very
outdated.
dated. It's very dated. Yeah,
But at the same time, the importance of that platform at the time was huge,
yeah,
bringing people back to the Salah and the
yeah,
basic following of Islam, giving this new generation, third generation, second generation, you know, but Muslims who are born in the UK and in the West,
yeah,
to immigrant parents,
yeah,
a sense of community and understanding of the religion because like you say, a lot of people have been raised in the masjid and
yeah,
all you hear is Urdu. You don't know anything about your religion.
yeah, yeah. And
And it's so important. And the thing is, these days, you see people who are YouTube generation,
mhm,
they're so quick to be critical about that generation
yeah,
and
it's not
about,
fair. It's not fair.
their method. You have to really appreciate what they did,
It's
you know.
very easy to here's the thing. It's very easy to jump on a bandwagon when that bandwagon is already rolling down the hill. So these
Mhm.
people like, Ahmadidat and Zakir Naik, whatever have you, they were building the bandwagon. They were
Yeah,
building the whole network. They were producing the material. Fine, by today's standards, it's not very good. But in those times, it was the best thing available. It was the only thing available. Right? You have to understand that to start something off, to start off a movement, is so much more difficult than simply joining and improving on a wheel that's already been rolling. And that's what's happening now. Like the current generation now, you're only just improving. You're standing on the shoulders of giants. You're just improving iteratively on what other people have built before you. But just think, if those people hadn't have made their efforts beforehand, you wouldn't be able to do what it is that you're doing today.
definitely.
And that's what there's a lot of short-sightedness. So again, I personally believe, I'll say this openly, that the way that some things are explained is not correct, is not the best way, and whatever have you, even that
Yeah.
now. However, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater now, especially in hindsight. You don't just say, oh, because this one little thing was wrong or not the best way, whatever have you. You just throw everything out. You take the khair, you take the goodness of whatever it is, and whatever can be made better, you just improve upon it, right? So anyway, at this point in time, then obviously, we had marital differences. I wanted to be a lot more practicing, whatever have you, whereas Mrs. Was not so inclined. So we parted ways on that regard. So I'm the newly single man that was now heavily motivated and able to research and study a lot more of the religion. So I took the opportunity to start going to weekend courses and whatever have you. There were courses in London, Birmingham, Manchester, wherever. I was essentially a free agent, going to Hyde Park. So, some people might, I hate being on camera, doing, but there are some legacy videos from the old days that just, before Hyde Park became a, camera central, of some conversations and things like that I had there. And just by happenstance, because I happen to be online a lot, I happened to see a tweet from someone in London talking about a Dawah conference that I was already attending. Um, and they asked if anyone would want to be involved in the live streaming of that. Sorry, the live tweeting of that. So I volunteered, and alhamdulillah, they gave me the opportunity. And that happened to be Brother Ayub Sidat, who was the marketing manager for a brand new organization at the time. I think it was actually their 1 year anniversary at the time, called IERA, the Islamic Education and Research Academy. So I went to, this was like one of the very first, very early on open conferences. I'm front row, sitting next to Abdurrahim Green, Hamza George. I have no idea who these guys are, by the way. Abdurrahim Green was a very famous, prominent individual. I have no idea who this guy. I think I might have seen him on Peace TV, but I had no idea who I was sitting next to. My job was just, whatever the people are saying, just tweet it out and whatever have
Plus,
you.
all white people look the same, right?
Sorry?
All white people look the same anyway. You can't
No,
see
it
the
wasn't that. It's just like, no, but it's like, this. I remember saying this to Ayub. I think it was around about that time or sometime later, right afterwards, when I realized, who these individuals are. It's like what we were doing. We were basically hanging around with our equivalent of like the football superstars. Basically, I'm sure people would in other cultures would like to hang around with their favorite celebrities and whatever have you. And these guys were the celebrities of the Dawah world, and I was there rubbing shoulders with them, and it was kind of like, this is really weird and surreal to be here. But anyway, so from there they happened to be doing a course, Call of Duty, which I attended along with various other courses. And that Call of Duty actually for me was a Dawah changer. The mechanics, a lot of the stuff, the whole go rap methodology, that was that really changed the way I was thinking. And then somewhere along the way, so obviously Sabur was involved. Sabur is part of IURA. Sabur. He's I keep trying to get him on here, but he's busy doing a whole bunch of live streams. But somewhere along the way, he advised me about this book called Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath. And I think that's probably one of the very few books that I've ever bought on anyone's recommendation and read. But honestly, that for me. If you go on.
He actually recommended that to me as well.
Yeah, that I have to say.
For the marketing.
Yeah, no, seriously, that book, I have to say, for any da'i who hasn't read that book, you are seriously doing yourself a misservice. Right, that book is really, really good. You really have to read that book, and that completely realigned my thinking. And I basically assimilated that book. And from there, I started to change a lot of the things that I was up to. Now, the point of the whole background of the story that I took a long time to get around it is, for me, I didn't. My objective wasn't to just reinvent the wheel. My objective was, look, information is out there, but it's not being digested by the general public. Why? Because it's not being presented in a manner that they find appealing or they find understandable, whatever have you. So I wanted to basically redress everything, propagate the same information, but find the way to do it in such a manner that people would find it understandable, relatable, and basically digestible. And so basically, at the end of the day, that's when they'll accept it. Ali Hamudur is on the scene at this point, and obviously I've been involved in the Dawah now for a while. So he asked me if I could put together a course to deliver to the people in the masjid, because he was trying to get team a group of du'at together. And essentially from there, Dawah Power was born. So I started basically putting down the slides and started thinking, right, okay, look, if I was to go from step zero, what are the most important principles? Now, bear in mind, I've been giving Dawah at this point for close to a decade, so I had a lot of experience. And somewhere around about this time, so this is what, early 2011, 2010, because I'd also had at this point the opportunity to travel to Norway. At this point, I had traveled to Norway with Hamza for his debate with Lars Gule. I had traveled to Norway again with Yusuf Chambers, and traveled around the north of Norway, where we did a whole Norway Dawah mission that was broadcast on IERA's YouTube channel. So YouTube was getting big at this point.
This was in the early days of
this is the other thing as well. No one was vlogging, so to speak, these Dawah vlogs. I was doing this, I had to prove to Hamza, that I could do it on my phone. I was editing these videos on an iPhone 4, just taking the videos, editing it literally there and then, and uploading them uploading them straight away. That was a brand new thing. People are doing Dawah vlogs and things like that right now. There wasn't anything like that beforehand.
I remember that
So
as
I'll
well.
I'll put my hand up there and say, that was something that Ira backed me in being able to start. But that was something that we started then, and then that continued on to Mission Africa, where alhamdulillah I was invited to go to Africa, to Burundi, Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania, South Africa, and there was
I mean,
another
how
country there.
that was what, 10 years ago.
That was 2012. That was
Yeah,
so that was 10 years ago that I was doing this.
yeah. I remember. I remember it
And
very
there
well.
was there was a lot of other innovations as well that came up. Like came up with the idea. You might have seen like little Dawah business cards, because I was thinking
Yeah,
that in terms of Dawah material, nobody's going to be carrying booklets and things like that around with them. That's impractical. But a business card size thing, yeah, you can. So I actually developed and created these little Dawah business cards with brief explanations for God, Quran, and messengership on the back that you could literally just give to someone or just leave them around. I was really out on my own, just getting very, very creative and stuff. So that's basically where the Dawah Power came from. That it was an amalgamation of kind of everything that I felt was practically useful, and from then it just kind of grew. Anytime I learned something new, anytime something that I thought would be a good lesson for the art to learn, I just basically kept on adding to it and adding to it, so it iteratively improved. And stuff that I felt was didn't really make sense anymore, or wasn't like at some point in the early stages, I used to teach all the scientific proofs, how do we know that the universe is expanding, and the Hubble telescope and blah blah blah. Whereas and because there used to be contentions in the say about 10 years ago that, okay, look, did the universe really begin to exist, whatever have you. Whereas now nobody really, that's not really a contention anymore, because the science has moved to such a point where everybody accepts that the universe had an ultimate beginning. So again, we just eliminate all that stuff. I used to be very big with Ahmadiyya stuff, so I used to know all of the reputations of this Bible verse, that Bible verse, and obviously there's counter reputations. You just go round and round and round. But when I studied epistemology, which was my favorite subject at all, and I just basically found a way to undercut all of that. That at the end of the day, it came kind of indirectly. Once I'd understood properly the proof of the Quran, once you understand the proof of something being the truth, everything else by definition must be falsehood. So basically, my proof with regards to any other theology is not a case of discussing that theology directly. What does it say, or this, that, and the other? The basic simple question is, how do you know whatever it is that you're holding in your hand to be the truth? First and foremost, I don't care whether you're talking about the Bible, the Torah, this, that, and the other, even the Quran. How do you know that it's the truth? There has to be an objective, which means a third party has to be able to, an objective third party can validate this. There has to be some kind of a methodology by which you approach this, by which you test it, by which you can determine that there is truthfulness in it. And if you can't pass that test, then what's the point of even discussing it? I might as well be discussing Harry Potter as truth. Is that? So. And from my perspective, once you can do that, you can undercut everything. You don't need to know about other people's deen or whatever have you. You don't, the idea that as a da'i, as someone who's a practicing Muslim, the idea that my dawah's effectiveness is predicated on me memorizing verses from somebody else's book and their history, and no. I need to memorize my own book. I need to memorize my own history. That there should be proofs from my own deen that will, by their own nature, by them very selves, should be able to outshine, basically deprove everything else, so to speak. So that's kind of where it grew from.
One thing that stood out to me with your methodology in your Dawah course, and even Sabor as well, I think both of you take a very similar approach, which is you're very good at simplifying things. So you take something which is quite difficult to understand. For instance, the way I saw you is you could translate Hamza's work for me.
Actually, Actually, no. Do you know what? I'm going to take. So there's a few things in the Dawah perspective I'm going to take credit for, right? I don't think I've actually publicly ever taken credit for this, but I'll take public credit for this. That I was I'll say one of, because I'm not going to say I was the only one, but one of the individuals that, let's just say, helped Hamza become understandable. So if you have a look at Hamza before his mission to Norway for Large Skule, which I was part of, and have a look at him afterwards. So obviously we spent time in an apartment together, and there obviously he was practicing for his debate. There was a very big debate. I can't remember specifically the reason why that was such a big one, because he had debated big people beforehand. But basically I spent a lot of time with him just translating his works. Like I remember specifically, now this became a very famous line, right? But I remember specifically, he used to go into this long-winded explanation about, how self-creation was impossible, whatever have you. So to which point I just said to him, like, listen, just use something more concrete. And again, I'm pretty sure this is where made to stick was coming into it. Look, can a woman give birth to herself? Well, no. Right. So you just gave him I just gave him that analogy. I said, forget all of this long-winded explanation, whatever have you, that just came through that someone's struggling to follow. The simple point is, look, can a woman give birth to herself? No, because self-creation is impossible. She can't exist to give birth. She can't give birth because she already exists to give birth, and she can't, it just makes no sense, right?
Did
At
you
which point,
also come up with the Allah has the picture, we have the pixel?
no, no,
Okay.
I don't like that one that much for technical reasons from a software background, but no, I didn't. That comes from, I wouldn't say anyone came up with that, because that's from Prince of Egypt. Anyway, there's
Okay.
and it's a very common perspective. When you're talking about wider pictures, it's there's a line in Prince of Egypt, when Jethro is talking about the tapestry of the whole thread, and he says that you can only see the thread, but the tapestry is the whole design. So no, I didn't come up with that. I wouldn't have come up with that. But I did come up with the whole, can a woman give birth to herself? Which I don't know why Hamza changed that to, can your mother? Hamza's got a fascinating with, can your mother do this? Did your mother come from Pluto on a flying cart? Like, why does it have to be your mother? Why can't it just be like a generic, unrelated woman? Because making it your mother doesn't change the point. So I never got that. But yeah, the whole thing, can a woman give birth to herself? Yeah, I came up with that. There was a few different things as well, like the whole the idea, how do you argue the oneness of God? How do you know there's not two different gods that just equally have the same will and whatever have you? So I've come up with, we'll cover that on the epistemology thing. But yeah, there was a few different things that, I simplified. I'm not saying I came up with a lot of the points. A lot of the points were, Hamza did a lot of research. I take nothing away from him. I'm standing on his shoulders. So he came up with the points, but I translated them so that they were understandable and relatable and basically easier to digest. And I think thereafter that, then you can find there's a real change in his dialogue. Until about like 3 or 4 years ago, when every other word started to become compassionate message of Islam. I think that's because he started getting attacked in the media a lot for past perspectives or whatever have you, which is really dumb thing that happens. But there you go, where you're held, in for eternity to account for
So
past views.
just so people are just tuning in, just to let them know that you have
Where have you
you,
been?
pardon?
The
Yeah, I
people who
mean
are just tuning in, where have you been?
they come in and out. So you're delivering a course this week, right?
So every weekend from April. So I'm delivering so this Dawah Power course that I'm doing now, I'm delivering this every weekend throughout April. So we've already had the first two sessions yesterday and today, which is the characteristics of a Dawah, which in my professional opinion, I say professional opinion, I don't get paid for this, but is the 90% of the effectiveness of your Dawah. Okay, so it's not, I don't engage in, here's the thing, I think me and you kind of resonate on this a lot. I think me and you are not fans of the sensationalist Dawah, like where you see, despite the whole marketing thing of Jesus in the Injil, the whole thing of I say this, you say that, less sensationalist, the whole shock value. Oh, so and so reacts to this, like that whole thing is just make believe. It's just there for YouTube likes and things like that. I like to be a lot more pragmatic and just go be a lot more practical. And at the end of the day, I don't care about likes and things like that. This is why I'm no good at marketing. This is why you guys don't see me on social media, because I'm not. My objective is, and John will tell you this, I've been saying this to him for years, and Sabur as well, because they've been trying to get me onto social media. My objective is not to become famous or popular or well known, because I only actually need one like, and that's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My perspective has actually historically always been that I would rather teach the du'at, the new techniques, the new arguments, and you guys
It's
go out and become
well,
popular, and inshallah, the hasanah go on my
it's
scales.
interesting.
But
I've been trying to get you to come online for a couple of years, and
yeah,
the funny thing is that I've apart from the Young Smirks podcast, which I
yeah,
don't really count because it's me interviewing people, but my own online dawah, I don't actually do release that many
yeah,
videos, to be honest. Of me actually publicly teaching dawah
yeah,
or anything like that. I
yeah,
focus more on being with people,
yeah.
and delivering the course, in person.
Yeah, for me it was a case. So let's just say after the trip to Norway with Yusuf, so there was an individual who started to become very very popular. Uh, started making YouTube videos, and again we were talking about these videos are being produced in almost a vacuum where there's nothing else there. And so long as you're energized and charismatic on screen, on camera, you got a good marketing team, whatever have you, you can become popular very very easily on YouTube at the time, because there's no alternatives. But the problem is, in terms of the content, there was some very very basic mistakes which I found problematic, and I spoke to Sabur about this. And Sabur's position was, and I absolutely agree with him. I didn't act on it, but I do agree with him. Was that I need to be online as well, basically making content to counteract that position. But the thing that scared me a lot at the time was one of my teachers at the time. I say at the time, I still learn from him whenever I can and listen to his lectures all the time. Sheikh Bilal Ismail. He said something, because again this is the age of sensationalism and YouTube celebrities and things like that coming up, because YouTube is the big thing, that there are people that will benefit Islam and there are people that will benefit from Islam, or you can say that there are people that will profit Islam and people that will profit from Islam. So to be very, very careful about which one you are, have your niyyah in check. Is your objective in making this YouTube video? Is it so that people see how clever you are? That it's all about look at me, I've got this new thing. That the video is all about me. It's so a video title would be, oh, Jamshed does this, Jamshed does that, Jamshed speaks to an atheist. If you have a look at, you just look at the break down the nature of that sentence. Jamshed is doing this. The subject of that sentence is me. It's not about that, oh, this point has come about. It's about that I'm the one doing the point. I'm making myself like, the core of the subject. And that was something that was very, very conscious to me. And I didn't want to do that because that's where the ego grows. And obviously, it leads to other kinds of problems, which I was starting to see happening, where some people were starting to let their egos get ahead of themselves. And of course we see a few years later that these very individuals start challenging shuyukh who have many many years of seniority and authority and experience over them, and started little kids refuting shuyukh who've been studying Islam longer than these guys have been alive. So that was something I was very scared, and I still am actually. I actually do fear falling into that. But at the same time as well, what's been argued to me is that if nobody else is producing this material, then I'm kind of also at fault and sin there, because people are searching for the material but they can't find it. And if I'm not putting it out there, if I'm not making that available, then where's the effectiveness of my dawah? So I'm kind of in a catch-22, which is why I'm trying to find it hard to strike the balance between getting the material out there and accessible, but at the same time not making it about me. I I,
Yeah,
I
it's
prefer my
difficult.
work to speak for itself, which is why, as you mentioned, like you say, in terms of the Dao Power course, it is absolutely possible that people have seen the material that I've produced but under a different name, because I've shared the content with yourself. I've shared the content with other du'at as well that have also rebranded it. Like I said, for me, I don't care about the name. I don't care about the branding, because at the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows where that came from. And
Yeah,
if all of the du'at in the world were teaching this material, all of that inshallah is coming back on my skills anyway. So for me, I want people to be teaching this. I from my perspective, I got no issue with exclusivity, but it's a case of making sure that what's being done is being done in a way that's going to benefit me in the akhirah, not just in the dunya. And that's
Um,
so. I hope
so
that
what?
answered the question.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
You know what? It's so you have the course running
mm.
next week as well.
Sorry. So
So
yeah. So it's a big course. So we've just covered the two sessions from this weekend are on YouTube already. You can see those on my page, which is on Facebook, Dawah
what's
with
the channel?
Jamshed, or on Facebook it's Dawah with Jamshed, or on Twitch it's
Can you put
Twitch.
the link in the comments? Do you have access to the comments?
Which comments? Do I have access to those comments? Oh, YouTube comments. Oh wow,
Yeah,
I haven't even seen these comments.
yeah.
MashaAllah. Oh, okay. These
You
comments are directed. I was going to say, can you come to Nigeria? I was going to say, is that me or you? That's probably you.
if you can
Uh,
post the link of your course.
do you know? I'm just gonna WhatsApp it to you, man. Oh, the course. The course is on Twitch.t. I tell you what. Let me WhatsApp it to you, man, and you can put it in. So, hold on one
Okay.
second. So wait, hold on. Oh yeah. And that one. So I'm actually live on Twitch right now, so not to take people away, but so at least they know which is the correct channel. It's twitch.tv/Dawah Power.
You said you'd
So
also put them on YouTube, right?
yeah, so
You,
I'm doing this live. The reason why I like Twitch is because the latency is very low. It's very, very interactive. I'm not sure what the latency is on YouTube. On Facebook, it's really bad. It's like 20 seconds or so that someone can type something, and it's 20 seconds before they actually get the response of you even seeing that.
yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So we've done the first section on YouTube, on Twitch already, which has been exported to YouTube. So the videos of those are available. Next weekend, British Standard Time, 3 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. Every weekend on Saturday and Sunday. Next weekend is epistemology, which is probably the heaviest subject, but it's my favorite subject. How do you know? Like, what is the truth? And this is where the story of the orange car comes in, or the red car in my case.
The
And
orange.
then the week after that, so that's next weekend. The week after that is then deductive proof and evidences for the divine reality, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That'll be over the whole weekend. And then the weekend after that, my personal favorite is the argument for the preservation of the Quran, which I think, even if you just learned one thing, just that on its own, it's so simple. But once you've seen that, you will actually see and understand and be able to relate to the miracle of the Quran as compared to, for example, the other miracles that people of previous nations seen. I mean, just to give you an example, imagine if you were there at the time of Musa alayhi salam. You saw the river turn to blood. You saw fire rain down from the sky. You saw, clouds of locusts and whatever have you, or you were there at the time of Isa alayhi salam, and you saw the dead being brought back to life and whatnot, and yet you put that verse a book. Like, a lot of people, I know we as Muslims were indoctrinated to believe, oh look, it's the greatest miracle, whatever have you, but can you experience that? Do you know what that is? Can you actually feel it? So inshallah, over what I'm going to try and do is actually expose, no, you can, and this is how you do it, and this is what the proof is. And inshallah, once you've seen that, then you will actually really, really understand the Quran for that. It's not just a book. Like, what makes it a completely different book altogether. And we'll also be covering the proof of messengership of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Depending on, now, it's that one is like my second favorite argument. The best lecture I've ever heard on this is Muhammad the Greatest, which I actually do have all the material for. I've never actually delivered it myself, but wallahi, that lecture, the way that was put together, just to give you the culmination of it, that lecture goes through describing the nature, the characteristics of Rasulullah sallallahu versus every other great personality in history, and it demonstrates. There's this book from Michael Hart. I was going to say a different name there because called The Greatest 100 Personalities in the History of the World, right? Or the most influential, sorry, where Prophet Muhammad sallallahu is rated as number one in both versions of the book. But this actually lecture goes to demonstrate like how he was number one, like how superior Rasulullah sallallahu was versus anybody else, and there is no number two. Because in terms of all of the characteristics, when you look at it, there is no second place. It's literally that by the time you come out of this lecture, you see that Rasulullah is standing on the podium by himself. Everybody else is not even in the running. Like, that's how clear the difference is. So inshallah, we'll go through that as well if I can get that one prepared in time. Otherwise, we'll go to the other one. But yeah, this is a material I have, and unfortunately, not that many people really know about it because I've been bad.
Inshallah. Well, maybe we can come back in a future podcast and
Definitely,
cover some of these topics
yeah,
in
definitely,
detail.
definitely.
Now people are familiar, they've met you, and been introduced to you. So maybe we can
Sure.
speak about some of these topics. I'm actually starting a weekly uh, show on my other channel, John Fontain channel,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to be more Dawah focused. So we're going to start with Christianity, but we can also speak about atheism and other points and
Mm-hmm.
just Dawah in general. So it'd be good to get you on and
Yeah.
maybe we can go through some of your content, inshallah.
Inshallah, definitely. Always up for it, man. Love it.
Jazakallah khair, bro. It's
Love
been a
it.
pleasure
Yeah.
to catch up with you,
Yeah,
and
definitely. Likewise. Jazakallah khairan for
been
having me.
really nice to catch up. It's been a while, and
Yeah.
I hope the people who have tuned in will actually make the most of the link and start joining your course and benefit, inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khairan. Yeah. All welcome.
So
I don't believe in all this sign up nonsense. Put in your email, put in your credit card number, what's your grandmother's name, and blah 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 blah. Well, like I said, I don't do the marketing. Literally, just turn up on Twitch. You can just watch it. You have to register with Twitch if you want to engage and ask questions. But to just watch the stream or watch the YouTube, nothing. There's the link. Yalla, Bismillah, go for it.
Jazakallah khair, bro. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
And just before we finish, just like to thank everyone for joining us and leaving your comments. Make sure you like and subscribe and share the channel, share the video so people can benefit. And if you have any comments or people you'd like to see on the Young Smirks podcast, please comment below who you'd like to see on the channel. Maybe I'll try and get them on. And also make sure you go onto the John Fontaine channel and subscribe on there as well so you can stay in touch with what's going on. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan.